My son hadn't spoken to me in 10 years.
Until he needed money for his wedding.
My son stood on my doorstep in an expensive suit, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. His hair was perfectly styled, his watch gleaming. He looked like he belonged to a world I was never allowed to enter. It was the first time I'd seen him in years. Not a single call on my birthdays. Not even a text on Christmas. Nothing. And now he was here asking me to help finance his wedding. This was the same son who once told me his stepfather was more of a father to him than I ever was. When I refused, he shouted, "Is a birth certificate more important than unconditional love?" The irony stung like a slap. My name is Clint, and this is how my wife and son left me for a rich man, and how life brought them back to my door when they least expected it. Years ago, when I married Joanna, we were young and thought love alone could get us through anything. A few years later, our son James was born. The first time I held him, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I knew I would die for this child without a second thought. I worked long hours in construction, even weekends, just trying to give them a good life, but Joanna wanted more. A bigger house, fancy vacations, designer clothes, things my paycheck couldn't cover. She grew restless, resentful. When she got a job as a secretary at a big corporate firm, I hoped things would get better. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. Late nights at the office, work trips, new friends. The distance between us grew until I felt like a stranger in my own home. Then one day my world shattered. A friend told me he'd seen Joanna having lunch with another man, holding his hand, looking happier than she'd looked with me in years. I didn't want to believe it. But when I followed her to that same restaurant, there she was, smiling at a man in an expensive suit like he was her entire world. His name was Cortland. Wealthy, polished, everything I wasn't. The confrontation at home was quiet. I laid photos of them together on our dinner table. Joanna didn't deny it, she just looked relieved. I offered a clean divorce. No alimony, shared custody of James. She agreed almost immediately. But after the divorce, our custody arrangement fell apart. I was struggling, missing my son every single day. Joanna and Cortland married soon after, throwing a wedding that made the local society pages. James was the ring bearer, wearing a suit Cortland bought him. He couldn't stop bragging about his amazing new life. Slowly, I watched my son drift away. Cortland bought him expensive toys and gadgets I could never compete with. Eventually, James told me he didn't want to come to my house anymore because there was nothing fun to do. Then came the moment that broke me. Joanna and Cortland asked me to sign away my parental rights so Cortland could legally adopt James when I refused. James looked me dead in the eyes and said, "He's more of a father to me than you ever were." That sentence crushed me. In the end, I signed the papers. Years passed. I remarried a wonderful woman named Lavra who helped me heal. She had a young son, Bill, and I grew to love him as my own. I went back to school, worked harder than ever, and became a surgeon. Lavra and I had 2 more children, Tommy and Emily. Life was finally peaceful. James never reached out. Not once. Then, out of nowhere, he appeared on my doorstep. Grown, confident, and dressed like money. He wanted cash. Apparently, Cortland had hit financial trouble and couldn't pay for James's extravagant wedding. So the son who chose to erase me from his life came crawling back, expecting a blank check. He tried to guilt-trip me, claiming family was family. He even tried to shame me by calling Bill not a real son. Hearing that, Bill stepped forward and said, "He raised me. He's my father in every way that matters." James, furious, lunged at him. They started fighting until I pulled them apart. When I threw James out, he swore I'd regret it. The next morning, Joanna and Cortland called, furious, claiming Bill had attacked their son. I calmly told them the truth. Their golden boy had shown up only to beg for money. I told them all the same thing. You don't get to walk back into someone else's life only when you need something. We blocked them all, including James. Years later, Bill got married. I proudly paid for the entire wedding. When James found out through mutual friends, he was enraged, believing I chose Bill over him, but the truth was simple. Bill chose me. James didn't. Sometimes I still think about my firstborn. I wonder if he ever regrets his choices. But then I look at my wife, my children, and the life I built from the ashes, and I remember something important. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, loyalty, and presence. And the people who truly love you will never make you beg for their affection, not even once. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.